That screaming is a toddler who's just been told it's time to go home from the park. It's about 20 past 8 in the evening of the 3rd of August 2020. And it makes me think about how emotions and petulance like that just gets honed down. Some people actually reflect on their childhood, probably on a kind of subconscious level, and think, no, now I'm older, I'm going to deal with things in a mature way. I'm not just going to do what is essentially a slightly more sanitized and civilized scream my fucking tits off because I'm not getting my own way. But the more I see of life, it's fallen sort of right into my hands tonight. The more I see of life, the more I see people who, to coin a phrase or a word that people overly use these days, that springs to mind, it's just entitlement. That's a pandemic in its own right. You know, up until a very recent point in my life, I thought, in my own way, raising my voice and screaming like a toddler who's been told he's got to go home from the park, I thought that was the way to get people on side. That was the way to make your point with power. And it's funny that it's taken all these years and such a advanced point in life to be thinking, God, what was I thinking? I've known people who grew up, you know, I can see on reflection, they grew up at such a respectably young age and decided just because I can do something or I can express myself that way, it doesn't mean I should. And they stopped doing it. You know, I used to think that they were weak. I used to think, why don't you kick and scream? You can see they were just a little bit more mature and a little bit more able to control themselves. Those people who, no matter what the provocation and what the sort of potential nightmare of any scenario that you face together, they just dealt with it calmly and rationally. I guess I'm realising that a lot of my behaviour from the past has definitely come back to revisit. I seem at times, you know, when my mood is low, to almost be walking through a museum to my own petulance and arrogance and ego from my 20s, 30s and portion of my 40s, really. People talk about karma, and I don't believe in it whatsoever, but I do believe that if you live your 6 school years and 10, whatever it is, that you do see a pretty circular picture of life and those sort of archetypes of behaviour. My life so far has been long enough for me to see the archetype of what I was, you know, which is the spoiled little brat. The squeaky cog, constantly moaning, thinking that somehow adds validity, you know. My ship's sinking. Fucking hell, people knew about it. They were coming down with me, kicking and screaming. I'd even be forcing the rats, I'd be grabbing them as the ship went down, making sure they drown with me. You know, at any given point in my life, it's not been a sort of one-sided thing. I've not just been this bogeyman, this evil force, far from it. You know, people tell me that I was relatively good value as a friend in a very flippant way when I was younger. You know, it wasn't all bad, but some of my behaviour, as I say, I've gone on enough about that. I can see that there is a certain museum that you end up walking through, and that is of witnessing. If your eyes and your heart are open enough, you will see behaviours that you bestowed upon the world coming out in the form as everyone else. You know, the form of other people, I should say. And their lack of genteel nature, their lack of maturity, their unwillingness to take responsibility as an adult. But I can see I can see that this museum I'm walking through is sort of my own creation. Just happens that the sequence of events that led me to this realisation were me being very self-destructive and a destructive force in other people's worlds as well. As I say, it's not all a black and white story. I'm not a monster. Certainly not now. But it's waited, you know, it's waited for a time in life where I've got to the lowest point I've experienced thus far. I'd be very, very unwise, or I'd recommend nobody ever think that they've ever visited the darkest arenas of life, because just when you think you've seen it all, life can give you a short, sharp shock, you know. But it is just such a deserved irony in some respects that at this point in my life, where I'm the lowest ebb I've probably ever been, to be forced to walk through this museum on a daily basis, I really did ask for it. When I was inconsiderate with my words and actions, did I ever think that other people may be facing some of the darkest moments in their life? No. My attitude was, well, I'm honest, I'm open. If you can't handle me, that's your fucking problem. I encounter that. I encountered it for the first time in my life when I was 35. And it was shocking. Just somebody who was considerably older than me at that point, who really did have that attitude of, well, people know where they stand with me. I might be hard, but I'm honest. And all that people like that do is force people to be kind of yes men, to shut you up. There's a few people who you see as cold, heartless, and you can never work out why they don't like you, and they've probably just got the measure of what and who you are. But those people who think that just being a bombastic, loud and aggressive character is somehow other people's problem if they can't handle it. Yeah, it is their fucking problem. But it's also there's absolutely nothing noble in you, us, me, thinking, I'm open, I'm honest. If other people can't handle me, that's their fucking problem. They're going to meet worse. We can't go through life judging behaviour and being lenient on people because we think, well, it could be worse. Not murdering anybody, you know. Society's worst case scenarios can't be ever passed off as some kind of daily norm in our lives. And, you know, I can see the error of my ways. I can see that at this point where anxiety just consumes my very being, that this is the time I needed to be walking through this museum to my past. It's not easy, but I do understand. I am self-aware enough to be able to grasp it with both hands and think, what's this trying to teach me? You know, I find myself stopping myself in situations with regards to my relationship with my daughter, where I will just find myself thinking, you know, it's never aggressive, it's never nasty, but I'll just think, no, give her time, give her understanding. And it's a very conscious thing to sort of want to give her that time and stop being the sort of arrogant person I used to be. I'm not proud of that, but you know, it is true. There is just nothing to be gained from living some fantasy version of what and who you are. And you know, there are aspects of my life, and especially my relationship with my daughter, that I'm very proud of, but I'm not proud of myself. I'm proud of us. The way we work together as father and daughter to create a relationship that's based in love and laughter, and being able to talk about anything. No holds barred, really aren't. But you know, it's not easy all the time. My demons and the way I chose to live my life were a part of my life for so many years that my norms were so self-destructive and unhealthy. And you know, part of the reasons why my previous relationship ended was because of that refusal to ever cooperate or bend, and thinking people can't handle me, it's their fucking problem, etc. But yeah, I do have to make a conscious effort. I do have to step back from what my programming is telling me on numerous occasions, but I always do it. There are times living in a small room, my daughter's coming to stay in the light, things get spilt. I'm spilling stuff all the time. I have to have a cheap carpet cleaner with a brush in the nozzle on standby all the time. You know, you buy them £5 and it's always on standby because I'm always spilling stuff. She spills stuff, I react like it's something I never do. And I always take a step back instantly, and I mean instantly, sometimes before the sentence is even, before it's even left my mouth, and I'll say, no, I can't go down that path. You know, you can't criticise people for knowing something that you've only found out 24 hours previously yourself, and they don't know it, you know, and you can't criticise people for things that you'll happily do yourself, or do in error, and, you know, get very angry with yourself. Just, you know, projecting your anger outwards is such an awful and unhealthy thing to do, especially to a child. But luckily, you know, my relationship with my daughter as a single man came about at a time where I was looking inwardly. You know, there was the first couple of months where I was trapped at my mum and dad's house 200 miles from here, heartbroken, wanting my daughter and mourning a relationship, and I had to look inwardly. You know, this is the final straw. Somebody who was almost spookily intuitive told me back in about 2008, I'm sure she's a witch, she said to me, Dave, sort yourself out. You're going to end up 50 years old, living in a bedsit and be an advanced alcoholic. And at the time I just thought, fuck you, you know. People can't deal with me, it's they fucking me, you know, all of that crap. And, you know, I remember sitting in Canterbury one cold evening. I'd lost so much weight in that first few weeks of being back in Kent. I was only there 8 weeks. It was bitterly cold February day. Just huddled in a corner with full going outside regalia on, you know, I just couldn't get warm. And I started recording a series of videos that were to myself to watch in the future, saying, what have you done? This is where it's landed you. What have you done? I'll make them public one day. But I occasionally, they're in a private playlist on YouTube, I occasionally go back and watch them. And it is, it's difficult to watch, knowing exactly where my headspace was and how destroyed I was. Every aspect of myself that I'd always thought was unbreakable, just and even moral. Dare I think that? How dare I? It's not for me to bestow those accolades upon myself. But I was looking inwardly, just thinking, with those words from 2008 ringing in my head, you're going to end up 50, advanced alcoholic, living in a bedsit. And I thought, I've ended up here. Admittedly, I was 48 at the time, but I thought give or take a couple of years. And you know, it's terrifying when you start seeing prophecy playing out. That you can see somebody didn't really have to know me too well to be able to come up with such a possibility. They just had to be in full knowledge of what and who I am and how I've been over the last couple of decades, and have the balls to actually speak to me. Because I'd just tell people to fuck off and, you know, think they're not worth knowing. And I'm so glad that that person did tell me that, because in a way it saved me. I'm so, to say, there are aspects of my life that I'm proud of in the present day, but when I think about them, they're all because of my work with people, not against them. And on an individual basis, no, I've done okay, but no, my pride only kicks in when I look at the combined force of mine and other people's love and patience and care and concern. Never just me on my own. I know my mother would argue with that, but then again, that's just mums for you, isn't it? But yeah, walking through this museum is not an easy easy thing to be doing for me right now. My anxiety is at an all-time high. There seems to be constant levels of anxiety coming from people around me. So, you know, there's no one in my life I speak to. It's just people that I live around and with and everything like that, and I haven't got a problem with any of them. Just saying how life has a tendency to do this, but there are other aspects of life where I'm seeing so much petulance and toddler-like behaviour, and I've got to absorb it. Doesn't mean I have to take crap. I'm the last person to ever do that, but I've got to absorb this. I've got to look at this and at least have some sympathy for the fact that this has come to me for some kind of perverse reason. It's just somebody saying, here, you know all those exhibits that you made over the last 2 decades? Well, I've put all the exhibits together. You won't recognise them because they're not necessarily in an exact sort of shape that you created. But nevertheless, it is a museum of your creation. The essence of all of the exhibits are of your creation. You might not recognise them, but if you look deep enough and open your heart, you will see all of those exhibits are of your creation. Do not try and destroy any of the displays because somehow they rub you up the wrong way. You created it. Do not fight what and who you used to be, and don't expect people to just absorb your apologies to the world in the nature of the way you talk and your actions these days. People will find their time to make your life peaceful again, and I'm very aware that just as I need time, other people do too. Hope this has made sense to at least one of you. God bless and nothing but love.